For you see, it seems that there was a very, very wise king. And he ruled over a very, very fine, fine kingdom. And he lived in a nice palace in a wonderful village right at the bottom of a great mountain. And about a half a day's walk away from his village and his palace, there was a wonderful little village in which lived great people, and one man in particular whose name was Mufuru. And Mufuru had two beautiful daughters, Maisha and Nayara. Now, it was said by everyone in the entire region that indeed Mufuru had two beautiful daughters, and they were very kind to each other as long as Mufuru was around. But when Mufuru wasn't there, Maisha would say to Nayara, "When we are grown, I will be the queen, and you will be a servant in my household." Well, Nayara would say to her sister, "But Maisha, of course, if you were queen, I would be very happy to be a servant in your household, but why do you speak to me so? You are so mean and so ugly to me, and I don't understand why." And Maisha would say, "It's because my father, our father, he likes you better than he likes me. And all of the people in the village say that you are nicer than I am. But I don't care, because when we are grown, I will be the queen, and you will be a servant in my household." Well, when Maisha began to speak like that, Nayara just shrugged her shoulders and said, "I don't know why you feel that way, because you are a very clever and beautiful daughter, and you are my sister, and I love you. But I can't change your mind." And so off she would go out into her garden. Now, Nayara was known to have the best garden in the entire village. She grew great big yams and huge sunflowers and millet and all kinds of wonderful things, so much so that she could even help to feed some of the other people in the village. Not many people knew her secret. But her secret was she had a friend in her garden. For one day, you see, she went out into her garden and she lifted up the leaf, and there was a garden snake. Little Noyoki. "Oh, Noyoki," she said. She was so glad to see him, for she knew that Noyoki would take care of all of the little insects and things that would eat up her garden. And so she treated him very nicely. She patted him on his head, and she sang him a little song. And she'd sing to him all day as she worked in her garden. And he really loved to hear her sing. And her song was something like this. "Oh, Naoki, you are my friend, Naoki. Oh, Naoki, you are my friend, Naoki." And so she gardened, and he took care of the things that he took care of, and they had a great relationship. And her garden flourished, season in and season out. Well, one fine day, there came into the village a messenger from the king, and he left the message that the king was ready to take a wife. From all of the beautiful young women in the kingdom, and the most worthy, he would make his choice. Well, Mufuru was delighted, for he knew that he had two of the most beautiful daughters in all of the kingdom. And so he called all of the villagers together and his daughters, and he said, "Tomorrow, at the break of dawn, we will all travel to the palace of the king." Well, everyone was so excited that they hurried home to make their preparations. And as they went to sleep, everyone went to sleep except Maisha. Now, Maisha was so greedy to be the queen that she decided that she would leave that very night so she could be the first to get to the king. And so she gathered all of her things together, and as soon as she thought everyone else was asleep, off she went. into the forest. Well, you see, she had never been in the forest alone at night before, and it really did look different. It was so dark, and there was lots of shadows, and it was really creepy and scary. And so she decided, I will be queen. I will let nothing frighten me. And off she ran down the pathway, and she was running so fast that she bumped into and almost knocked over a little boy who was standing at the side of the pathway. And she said, what are you doing here? You scared me, you silly little boy. You should be at home with your parents. Why are you not at home anyway? Get out of my way. I will be your queen. And he looked at her with very sad eyes, and he said, oh, but sister, I am lost in the woods, and I have nothing to eat. Can you spare me some of your food? I have no food for you, she said. I have only enough food for myself, because I must have my strength, because I will be the queen. Get out of my way. And off she ran through the forest. And she was running so fast that when she got to the fork in the road, she didn't see a great big rock on which sat a little old woman. And as she was trying to figure out which way she would go on the pathway, this way or that way, the old woman said, Aisha, Aisha, I have something to tell you, Maisha. And it frightened her, and she said, what are you doing there, old woman? Why aren't you at home with your family? Why are you out here in the woods frightening me? The old woman said, but Maisha, I have a warning for you. You must take this path to get to the king's palace. And as you go through, you will find a thicket of trees. Very thick the leaves are. They will laugh at you, but you must not laugh back. And when you get to the top of the hill, just before you go down into the valley of the king, you will meet there an old man with his head under his arm. You must be very respectful of him. Maisha looked for a moment at the pathway that she was told to go down, and she looked back at the old woman, and she said, old woman, I don't know you. You don't know my family. I don't have to listen to you. And off she ran down the pathway. And as she ran, she turned around and she said, and besides, you are old and ugly. And off she ran. And true enough, as the old woman had said, she came to a thicket of trees, and the leaves were so thick that the moonlight and the starlight could not even hit the path, and it was dark. She couldn't even see her hand in front of her face, but she kept on running, and she got so frightened that she ran, and sure enough, the trees began to laugh. This frightened her even more, but she was so determined that she would be queen that she closed her eyes and clenched her teeth, and she said, I will not be afraid. I laugh at you. And off she ran through the forest on the pathway to meet the king. She ran and she ran and she ran and she ran until finally she got to the top of the hill, where she rested for a few moments, for she had almost forgotten what the old woman had said. But sure enough, out of the shadow of a tree came an old man, standing very tall and very straight, and under his arm he held his head. Ooh, she said when she saw it. Ah, that is awful. You are ugly. I hate that. And off she ran down the hill to the palace of the king. Now, just about this time, the sun was coming up over the mountain, and in her village, her mother, her father, her sister, and all the villagers were awakening. And as Nayara awoke, she opened her eyes, remembering the day, and was so happy that she turned to speak to her sister, and her sister was gone. And she became very frightened. She jumped up and ran to their father, and she said, oh, father, my sister, she's not here. Where is she? Mufuro, being a very calm man, said, I don't know, but we will find out. And so up they got, and they began to search. And they searched all over, and all the villagers began to search, and soon someone saw Maisha's footprints going into the forest, and they realized that she had gone on ahead. And so their preparations continued, and soon all the villagers arrived, and they began their trip to see the king. It was a beautiful day. The sky was clear blue, and the clouds were fluffy and white, and the flowers, they were brighter than Nayara had ever seen them before, and the birds, oh, the colors of the birds. She thought it was such a beautiful day to be in the forest. And she told her father so. She said, "Father, this is a beautiful day to be in the forest." And he said, "Yes, my daughter. It's a wonderful day for us all." And they continued on the pathway. And as Nayara was going along, her eyes spotted a little boy hiding behind a tree. She said, "Little brother, come, come, come. Why are you here in the forest alone? Where is your family? Have you been here all night by yourself? You must be hungry." She went into her pouch and she gave him, "Please, take some of my yam. I'd be glad to share it with you." The little boy said nothing. He smiled, and he took the yam, and he turned and went back into the forest. And off they continued. And as they got to the fork in the road, the villagers knew which way to go, and Nayara's eyes wandered until she saw the rock. And the little old woman was still sitting there. And she said, "Oh, grandmother, why are you sitting here alone in the forest? Where is your family? They should be ashamed for leaving you alone. Are you hungry? Have you been here all night?" The old woman nodded her head. And Nayara went into her pouch and she said, "I have sunflower seeds. I grew them in my own garden. Please, let me share them with you." And the old woman took the sunflower seeds and nodded her thanks. And then she said, "You are a beautiful woman, inside and out. Many blessings to you, my child." Nayara nodded and said, "Thank you, grandmother." And off she went, for she didn't want to be lost from her family and the neighbors that were going with her to see the king. And they walked, and it was such a gorgeous day that it was almost no time at all when they were at the top of the hill. And Nayara could look down into the valley, and she saw the green fields and the palace of the king. And she said, "Oh, Father, surely there must be powerful spirits in this place." And her father took her by her arms and looked her in her eyes and said, "Yes, my daughter. Old spirits live here, and they were powerful, and we have been blessed by them. Let us go to visit the king." Off they went, down the trail, into the valley, to just before they got to the palace of the king. Out of the palace, burst through the door, none other than Maisha, and she was screaming to the top of her voice, "Oh, Father, don't let my sister go in there. There is a monster, a giant snake with 7 heads, and he told me everything about me, and he said I'd never be queen. Oh, Father, don't let my sister go." Well, like any father who was concerned about his daughter, Mufuru gathered Maisha into his arms, and he comforted her. But he said, "The king is asked to see all of the beautiful young women in the region, and surely your sister must have her chance. But I will stay with you." And then he said to Nayara, "Go, my daughter. Go to meet the king." Well, Nayara was brave enough, but she really wasn't too interested in seeing a giant monster snake with 7 heads. But she took a deep breath, and she looked back at her father and gained her courage, and into the palace she went, through the doorway, down the hallway, until at the very end of the hall she could see a giant double door. And she rushed to the double door and opened the door, and it was the throne room. And on the throne, which was in the middle of the room, she saw none other than Naoki. Her little garden snake. "Naoki," she said, "what are you doing here?" And as she went to pat him on his head, Naoki began to change right before her very eyes. He transformed into none other than the tall, handsome, wise king. And she was so surprised. She said, "But you were my little garden snake, Noyoki." "Yes," said the king, "I was Noyoki, your little garden snake, to whom you sang and showed so much kindness. I was also the little boy beside the trail who you shared your yam with, and I was the old woman with whom you shared your sunflower seeds. And I know you, Nayara, to be the most beautiful and the most worthy of all the young women in my kingdom, and I would ask that you would be my queen." Wow. Of course, she said yes. And Mufuru was a happy man, for all of the king's weavers began to weave the wedding cloth, and all the potters began to make the pots and make for a great wedding celebration, a celebration that lasted for days and days. They're still talking about it in that kingdom to this very day. And Mufuru was a happy man because his daughter, Nayara, was the queen, and his daughter, Maisha, was a servant in the queen's household. Mufuru's beautiful daughters. Did you like that story? Yeah. Good. I'm glad you liked it. There are some of you who had heard that story before, and I'm really glad to know that you've heard it. You can also read it, because it's in a book. And you know the thing that I know about good listeners? You all are excellent listeners. And the thing that I know about good listeners is that you always end up being good readers. And that's, of course, what we're interested in, isn't it? Would you like to hear another story? Yeah. All right. How many of you know about Burr Rabbit? Oh, you know Burr Rabbit, huh? Great. Good deal. Great. Well, then you know that Burr Rabbit is always having wonderful adventures. Sometimes he goes in search of the adventures, and sometimes the adventures come looking for him. But on this particular day, it had been a long time, you see, since there had been any rain in the forest. And everything was drying up. All the water was drying up. And if there was no water, there could be no food. And all the animals in the forest were very hungry. And they weren't exactly sure what to do, but they did know that their friend Burr Rabbit always had good ideas. And so they went to Burr Rabbit to find out what they must do to get food. And as they discussed it with Burr Rabbit said, "You know, over there by the McAllister's place, I saw a great big old pear tree and a little bubbling brook that hadn't dried up. Maybe if we go over there to that place, we can get some of that food and some of that water, and we won't have to be hungry no more." Well, all of the friends and neighbors, they all got together, and off they went over to the McAllister place. And they traveled a little while, and then they got to the McAllister place, and sure enough, there was a great big old pear tree, and it was just hanging down with big old juicy, luscious pears, and there was a little bubbling brook. And oh, the animals got so happy because they said, "Oh, we're going to get water to drink, we're going to have food to eat." And as they approached the pear tree, up out of the tall grass loomed the head of a giant lion. Oh, they all ran back. "Oh," he said, "this is my tree, this is my water, and I ain't giving nobody nothing." Well, the friends and neighbors were all very upset and very frightened, and so off they went back to Burr Rabbit's house. And they sat in the council, and they said, "Burr Rabbit, what are we going to do? Surely we'll starve to death, and our children will starve to death if we don't get something to eat and drink." And Burr Rabbit thought a bit, because he was pretty good at thinking up stuff. And he thought, he said, "I've got an idea. You all meet me here at the crack of dawn in the morning, and we're going to get us something to eat and something to drink, because we're going to work together. Well, the night went fast, and sure enough, at the crack of dawn, first person there was Brother Bear. And Brother Bear was standing there with a great big old club over his shoulder, just waiting for Br'er Rabbit to come. And then up comes Br'er Alligator. And Br'er Alligator came with his big old tail, and he said, we're going to get us something to eat and drink today. And then Sister Possum and Brother Owl and Brother Eagle and all the other animals in the forest, they all gathered round. Now, pretty soon, down the trail came Br'er Rabbit. And he had around his shoulder a great big old rope made out of vine. And as he came down the trail, he was just a-whistling, we're going to get us something to eat today. We're going to get us something to eat today. And as he came down the trail and he met Br'er Bear and Br'er Alligator, he said, now, I want you all to listen carefully. When I give the signal, Br'er Bear, I want you to take that big old club and I want you to beat on this old stump. Bick-a-boom, bick-a-boom, bick-a-boom. That's the sound I want you to make. And then he said to Br'er Alligator, I want you to climb inside this old hollow log, and with that big old tail of yours, I want you to make a sound, bick-a-boom, 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 when I give the signal. And then he gave the signal to all the other little critters, and he told them what he wanted them to do. And off he went down the trail to the McAllister place. Well, as he got close, he changed his song. And his song, when he came to the McAllister place, was, oh, there's a great big wind to come in, gonna blow everybody off the earth. There's a great big wind to come in, gonna blow everybody off the earth. There's a great big wind to come in, there's a blow everybody off the earth. Well, old Br'er Lion woke up, opened one eye, and opened one ear. And when he heard that, he woke up straight up and he said, there's a great big wind a-coming, gonna blow everybody off the earth. He thought. And just about that time, Br'er Rabbit gave the signal to Br'er Bear and Br'er Alligator. And just about the time old Br'er Lion woke up to hear that sound, he heard bick-a-boom, 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 bick-a-bam, 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 bick-a-boom, 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 bick-a-bam, bick-a-bam, bick-a-bam. And Br'er Rabbit started singing even louder. There's a great big wind to come in, gonna blow everybody off the earth. There's a great big wind to come in, gonna blow everybody off the earth. Oh, Br'er Lion, he said, good morning to you. I can't stay talk to you long. I got to get on down the road here. I got to tie up all my friends down here so the wind that's coming won't blow them off the earth. And Br'er Lion said, but you can't tie them up before you tie me up. I want to be tied up first. I don't want to blow off the earth. Br'er Rabbit said, I'm sorry, Br'er Lion, but I just can't take time to tie you up. I got to go down here with my friends and tie them up first, because there's a great big wind coming. It's going to blow them all off the earth. Br'er Lion said, no, you don't understand. I do not want to be blown off the earth, Br'er Rabbit. You got to tie me up first. Br'er Rabbit said, I told you I don't have time. I got to go. My friends are down the road here. I got to help them out first. Br'er Lion said, you have got to help me first. If you don't, I'm going to eat you up. Well, Br'er Rabbit said, well, if you put it that way, I guess I better tie you up first. He said, now, how you want me to tie you up so you be sure you won't blow off the earth, Br'er Lion? He said, well, if you tie my head here and my feet here between these two trees, surely I won't blow off the earth. Well, Br'er Rabbit said, if you insist, I'm going to do just that. And he began to tie, and he tied, and he tied, and he tied. And he said, is that tight enough, Br'er Lion? Br'er Lion said, I don't think so. You better do it a little tighter. So he tied, and he tied some more. He said, is that okay, Br'er Lion? He said, I think so. Now work on my feet real fast now before the wind comes. And just about the time he gave all the other little critters a sign, and oh, such a noise they made in the bushes and in the trees. And Brother Bear and Brother Alligator were still doing bick-a-bam, 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 bick-a-boom, bick-a-boom, bick-a-boom. And Brother Lion said, hurry up, Brother Tiger, Brother Rabbit, don't go so slow. I want you to hurry up and tie me up. He said, I'm going as fast as I can. And he commenced to tying and tying and tying and tying until he got Brother Lion all tied up. And he said, now, Brother Lion, you think you tight enough? All the while, all the little critters was making all this a big ruckus out there. And Brother Lion said, I believe so. I don't think no wind can blow me away from here now. Brother Rabbit said, you think so, huh? He said, oh, yeah. Thank you. Brother Rabbit, I don't think nothing's going to happen to me now. Said Brother Rabbit. All right, y'all can stop now. And come on and bring your crocus sacks and your buckets and get you some of these pears and some of this water. And that's the way all the animals in the forest got a chance to eat and got a chance to get their water. And you know, the best thing about the whole thing, and Bird Rabbit told them this, he said, you know, the very best thing about this whole thing was that we all work together. And that's the way we won't all starve together. Did you like those stories? Yeah. Oh, that's great. I'm going to tell you the very best part of the whole thing for me was watching your faces. You all have been such wonderful listeners, and I really, really like the fact that you've come and taken part of your day to be with me to hear stories. My hope is that we'll get a chance to do this again real soon. Would you like that? Yeah. I certainly would like it. And I would like to thank your teachers and all of the people that are responsible for you coming from the Community Preparatory School. You have been wonderful. You're great students, and I've really enjoyed having you. So we'll hope to see you again real soon. And until we do, take good care of yourselves and remember that you are all richly loved.